Cool. Welcome everybody to episode number 5. If I'm not
Five,
mistaken.
yeah.
Yeah, so this week's been interesting. Not as lively as the first GameStop week, but we saw a little rebound. And let's jump right into a meme, unless you had something to say.
No, yeah, go ahead, show it.
Don't use a financial advisor. Invest in what everybody else is investing in. Be a man.
That's good stuff, man. I found this guy's TikTok page and he just does a bunch of like these stupid statements, I don't know, inside jokes. And it's funny, especially with the GameStop stuff. But do you want to start talking about GameStop first or talk about like vaccines and quarantine life, see how that's going?
Yeah, let's do GameStop. You know, it's funny because I actually thought that laugh was you. It was you laughing with some other videos you sent me of you.
Yeah, no, it definitely wasn't me. Honestly, looks like a cool bit. I wonder if he's making money from that, because I looked at his TikTok page, man. He's getting like hundreds of thousands, sometimes like millions of views. I wonder if that's like a proper business, if he's got the money for that. But when it comes to GameStop specifically, yeah, like, can you share my screen or like show my screen on the thing? Because I've got the GameStop chart up. Like, I mean, we've all seen it millions of times. But first, as we can see, this is poorly calibrated for whatever reason. First, as we can see, it went to the moon in the case of the letter being M. And then recently, it just shot up again. What I did see that was interesting this time is that basically what happened was I think GameStop settled down at like a price of $40 before like shooting back up. Like, yeah, it was 45 here. And I remember it doubled during the end of the day to like $90 or something. And then I remember in the after hours trading, within the first hour of after hours trading, it doubled again. So it shot up like, obviously it didn't close at that price the next day, but I remember it went up to like way over 100.
Yeah, I got to 180, which was really good, which was half the peak.
Yeah, right, exactly. So this chart doesn't do its justice in terms of showcasing you to after hours and like intraday trading, but yeah, it shot up to like somewhere just under 200, I think. Yeah, it was. So that was pretty crazy. We also saw Deep Fucking Value post some new updates on Reddit, which actually showed that he doubled his position in GameStop, like in the GameStop shares. I think, as you can see, I'll just zoom in. 23 days ago, so in the 3rd of February, he had 50,000 the GME shares and a few 500 calls. Then he updated again us a week ago, where at the price of 40, he actually doubled his position. So he averaged his price down. Actually, maybe up. Oh no, yeah, he averaged his price down because before the price is $42. Then it was bought more at $40. So yeah, his average price on the price paid is 40. Okay, his average price actually went up, but at the end of the day, he still bought in at 40, and now it's a lot higher. So that's pretty cool. And as you can see, he's back to some fatty profits, which is kind of cool. But I don't know, man. I don't know. That maybe he won't, maybe he will, because he had that congressional like whatever hearing, and he then said that, oh yeah, he likes the stock, right, and he's gonna buy more of it at the price. I think he literally was asked about buying more at this price, so maybe that's the way in which he answered one of the questions. Like, yeah, I'll happily buy more at the price. Like, the meeting was like a week and a half or 2 weeks ago, something like that. He obviously did, and he just made more profit. But at the same time, yeah, I think with shares he might. Actually, I don't. Do you think he's gonna sell? You know, he's been very pro GameStop. I don't know if he'd be willing to sell.
He can't, because I think he's gonna get really screwed by the feds if he does. Because he said, "I believe in the stock," so it's not like a week later you profit take if you believe in the stock. That'd be speculating. So I think he's gonna.
I think that there's a problem in terms of like him saying he likes the stock in a congressional, like, you know, this isn't just like another Reddit post. Like, no, this is a hearing which probably hundreds of thousands of millions of people tuned into, or like at least got note of. And so he probably wouldn't be able to just buy 1 week, sell the next, and get off scot-free, I would imagine. I don't know, but we'll see what happens, because his calls are expiring mid-April. So this 14,000% gain that he has here, or like more recently 43,000. Fuck. Okay, yeah, the 43. Okay, that's a big difference. This crazy gain is what he'll be able to lock in around that date. So if you're talking about, when is he going to be cashing in his position, that one call position is then, but the stocks he might just keep for a while longer. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and apparently the reason why it's shot back up is because there's a lot of call options expiring at the end of Feb. And apparently, from what my friend was telling me, is that I imagine it's like the traders trying to bankrupt all the people who were betting the price would go down, and so inflating it a bit more. So I guess it'll crash again on the 1st of March, but let's see.
Right, that's interesting. Yeah, I'm not too big of an expert on how the call options work, or like options in general. Like I know the basics of the instrument in terms of, you buy a call option to, it's essentially a contract to buy the stock at a future price at a certain at a future date at a certain price. So the wrong way around. But yeah, if there's a lot of calls expiring, or like a lot of options in general, then you might be seeing this kind of movement to just kind of have more profit to be taken from these options in whatever way possible, right? I don't know the kind of makeup of the options which are going to be expiring soon, but the point is that with the options, you have the same exposure to risks, to gains and risk, obviously, as you would have with a stock, just for a lower price, right? Because you buy an option, and however much the stock goes up, your option has a similar increase in value to that. It's not necessarily because you're only buying $10 options for $100 stock that you'll be making, much less money. Can't speak. But yeah, we'll see what happens. If in that case, yeah, we might see, like we're saying now, a bit more of a run up and more volatility now. But then soon after that, once people have made their profits, however that works, we'll look into that. We'll probably talk about that next week. After that, you might, like you're right, just crash. Not even just crash like it did from 500 to 480 to $40 now, but just to nothing, right? It might be like the kind of final exit of some of the investors, but we'll see what happens. I'll look into the options, like you said. If you've got any links, then send it up. We'll see what happens with that.
100%, yeah. I'll ask my friend what his sources are. I suspect they must be Reddit posts, but so well,
for sure.
Yeah, let's see. It's okay. We can inspect his sources next week.
It's great sources now. We're looking at freaking Reddit posts like, yeah, bro.
Straight from the source, yeah. Yeah, I think the second thing that we were going to cover is vaccines and what's been happening with those, the general shit show that Europe has been in, and how well Israel, UK, and the US relatively have been doing.
Yeah. It's there's a big divergence, in terms of how well countries are doing. Because myself, I'm in the UK. I'm from Poland, and so I'm kind of keeping track on how the two situations are evolving here. You're from Italy, but you're living in Malta, and obviously, like, since we keep in contact, we kind of talk about collectively, like the UK. The UK has been doing very good, actually, on this front. That they've vaccinated with at least one shot almost 30% of their population now. This has been done over the last 2 months or something, like 2-3 months. I don't know when they started vaccinating, but I think it was like late last year, no?
Yeah, they started way earlier than Europe by a week or 2 weeks or so. But I think it's not even about how early they started. It's about they just had a very good and simple, effective way of going down the age brackets. Because I was reading that the reason why they're so fast is they go purely by age, whereas a lot of the European countries are doing it by occupation, and they have the vaccines and they can't vaccinate older people. And if you do it purely by age, it makes it super easy to contact everybody. They come in, and they already had a very good system up and running. Whereas in Italy, it's the region, they're using like anywhere between 10% and 60% of the doses they received. So it means over half the doses are just sitting there. And
that's ridiculous. That's the one thing I can give the UK some credit for, is the fact that they just spent a bunch of money buying up these vaccines. And since then, since the first dose came out to, I think it was like some 90 or like 100 and something year old person, they've just been going crazy. Like, they've been going ham, It's like 30% of the population right now Obviously, this is mainly with the first dose because only 1.1% have the second dose. But I do believe that the vaccines that they're using here in the UK, they have very good effectiveness against like the worst case scenario, even with the first dose. So the probability that you will have, some severe illness, potentially like, life-threatening to that point when you catch the coronavirus, that's very, very minimal with even the first dose. So even though it doesn't prevent you from getting the coronavirus necessarily, right, there's a smaller chance of that happening, it still helps hospitals, maintain a kind of steady capacity and not be overloaded, right? Because that's essentially what happened when they opened schools, is the fact that hospitals got overloaded. It was crazy that it was very problematic, right? That there was they couldn't manage everything. But now with the way that they're dosing people up, you've essentially you're starting to eliminate the worst case scenario, so that, as Boris announced recently, they'll be looking to take down or have all the COVID restrictions gone by the end of June, right? So obviously we might expect a week, 2-3 delay. Yeah, exactly. Fingers crossed with that. But nevertheless, like it's heading in the right direction. And I really do credit a lot of that to the vaccination program that they have here, just because, again, with the amount of vaccines that they have, even like the weather, the temperature's kind of getting better. That also plays a role in that kind of stuff, in the transmission and how severe people's illnesses are, whatever that may be. Not just COVID, but like how people's health is during the winter as opposed to warmer months in the summer as well. Point being, we'll be looking at a steady kind of decline of these restrictions. So that's where I'm happy with the UK. Where I'm not happy with the UK is that before we started the show, I went to Tesco Express to buy myself some beer, and I forgot my ID. The woman was like, can you take down your mask? I need to see, if you're, of age. And I take it down. They're like, no, I need to see my ID. And I'm like, do I not look? I don't look under 18, man. This is why the country is going to hell. Like COVID and stuff aside, a guy just cannot get a beer from their local Tesco's Express without getting got that ID'd, man. It's ridiculous. So I was able to buy the beer. I was like, I was very pissed off. I took that personally, this for some reason. But so the only thing I'm stuck with is the corona that I've had at home. So ironically, you can't escape it. But aside from that shambolic state of Tesco, listen, I don't want to go off on too big of a tangent, but this is always with Tesco employees. If they have the chance to ID you, they fucking will. They won't let you go. That's like the power that they have over you. Like, you want to have a good time tonight with some, like, I was buying like some dark ale, like not the kind of stuff a 17-year-old goes to buy for the first drink, like 16, 15, whatever, like a Carlsberg or a Heineken or some canned drink. Like, no, it was like something nicer, let's say. But yeah, that aside, the UK is doing great in vaccinations, respectively, right? Relatively, sorry. Because if we look at Poland, for example, this is where the problem of like they're going by the occupations and the other stuff. Okay, there's a lot of problems in Poland, mainly the populism, which is then downstream fed into most problems that the country has right now. Point being, you always hear news about their vaccination progress, lack of specifically, and how they're, I think one of the first groups that got it as well were like politicians and like ministers or like, in their own friends in parliament or whatever the hell. Yeah, it was ridiculous.
In the US, they vaccinated the senators and the congressmen. But I think that's fine. That's not a problem if you vaccinate. At most, it's 1,000 doses. That's not really the problem. The issue is if you haven't got it organized where you're vaccinating 500,000 people or 100,000 people a day, then that's the real issue. And
exactly.
On the point that you said that the UK has a lot of doses, actually worldwide, that Canada has the most doses per capita. No, I'm not sure if they've received enough of them or if they just have a vaccination problem. But that's super interesting. And then conversely, you can see Africa is very empty there. Very, very empty.
Bro.
And that's actually, that percentage is not happy. and so it's a big problem. And China and Russia are obviously stepping in, saying, oh, look, Europe and all the rich states aren't giving you vaccines, so we'll give you some. So now there's a big race to deliver vaccines. And it's something that Macron worked on. And he was doing an interview with the FT, and it was basically like, we can't just promise we'll give you money for the vaccines. No, it has to be that we deliver you vaccines for next week.
Yeah, for sure.
It can't just be like, yeah, sure, I can give you $2 billion for vaccines, but if they come in 6 months, that doesn't help anyone.
And you've also got the problem of corruption and the idea of how much of that $2 billion is going to get to where it should be to be effective. Morocco is doing the best out of the African countries. They have 10% of the population who has at least one shot. But yeah, that's a big. I mean, this is just a big blank hole.
That's more like than the European countries. If you hover over like France or Italy. Europe is doing incredibly poorly, and I think like there's a bit of a problem in terms of the fact that the EU is quite slow in general. But I think, like you said, a similar problem that Canada may have is the idea of like, okay, how many doses have you got on paper versus how many doses have you delivered to the people, and how many doses have you got like ready to be used, essentially, right? Because I think that's a problem which we're seeing in Europe, is the idea of actually having the doses not just on paper and, you know, like the contract with which you've paid for these doses, but no, can you grab the dose from the door, from the room next door, and actually issue it, like use it? Because in Poland, like for example, in Poland, there is more talk and planning about getting the vaccine out, and now we're going to move on to teachers, and now we're going to be doing this, that, and the other, and like, you know, don't be scared, we're managing it. But you look at Poland, and 5.5% of the population, have got at least one shot, which is very poor compared to Morocco. At the same time, we have more numbers who are fully vaccinated. So in Poland, I guess the way the system is kind of working more is that first they're doing the first dose, and then also they're issuing the second dose to that person, because to them, or at least to the vaccine that they have, that promotes the effectiveness of the vaccine that warrants it to be a genuine vaccine, right? It's not like in the UK where it prevents the worst case scenario. Like, no, you've got the vaccine and you're fine. And it's like, I understand that. That's one approach. But I feel like sometimes quality of the vaccine, you have to have a bit of both. I feel like the quantity of the vaccines, compare that to the UK, they've taken the opposite approach where they're just first dosing everyone. I don't know. You know, Poland right now is tightening restrictions. They're tightening for April and May. Now, one thing that may be is that they don't want families and people coming back to Poland, like, you know, myself and my family for Easter, because we might bring the disease, this, that, and the other. You know, that's kind of what happened last year in terms of people and families coming back. They even, the Polish government subsidized a lot of flights back to Poland. That didn't help their situation. And so now they're trying to prevent it. But at the same time, they're talking about the plan and how they're doing this, that, and the other to ensure effectiveness. And you just have a meager amount of doses given out per, you know, in respect to your population, right? Which, again, this depends in terms of, you know, everyone has their own strategy. Every country has their own plan. But we can clearly see the UK coming back to what we knew as life much sooner than Poland, for example, other European countries even, to be honest. But I think one thing that they're super concerned about, because now they've got the vaccines more or less sorted, but the next issue that I think they're really facing and trying to contend with is different variants.
Yeah.
And I think they're really trying to discourage people from going on holiday, because although everybody's vaccinated, if the UK being an island is very advantaged that it can really control its borders and stop people from coming in with different variants. But if somebody goes abroad to Greece or whatever, and in Greece you've got random variants going around, somebody catches it, like be vaccine resistant, brings it back, that's destroys all of the work that the UK has done. So it'll be interesting to see how they try to manage the messaging to say, hey, go do your holidays in the UK like they did last summer. You know, they're saying go down to Devon or whatever. But I think the strains that are vaccine resistant are going to be the big next battle for 2021.
For sure. Yeah, no, I agree. There is definitely an issue with the variants and whether or not the vaccines that we have now are going to be effective against those variants. But at the same time, it's not like I want to say it's a problem for the future, but at the same time it is. Like, we just have to make use of what we have now. Vaccinate people.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't.
No, for sure. But I just know that what I mean is that I've heard arguments in terms of, oh, if this vaccine won't be effective against all these other variants, South Africa, this, that, and the other, then is there really much point to taking it? Like, yes, there very much is. Because variants for sure are going to come by year after year, and the vaccines or the medicine or the protection against it is going to have to develop and evolve as we kind of go along. But you can't justify today's vaccine potential slight ineffectiveness in the future to not use it today, because it's what I've heard essentially, and I feel very, very much disagree with it. Because again, it's like, for some reason, especially when it comes to Poland, I see it as a bit of an argument for the lack of the rollout we see now. Like, it's slow and we haven't vaccinated too much of the population because, like you said, we're going by occupation instead of, for example, age, as they have in Europe, in the UK, sorry, because they've just gone by age. That's it. As many, I think they're looking at the top kind of risk groups and just taking them off, just dosing people up as quickly as possible. And I mean, yeah, for sure, like you said, we'll see how that develops if and when a new variant comes by, because people might start traveling again. But I mean, yeah, I don't know anything about that and the new variants, and because that goes into biology and stuff. But this distribution thing, that's something that we can talk about as more economists and people of the econ politics type side. The mechanics of the distribution, whether or not that might be effective, as opposed to the biology of the vaccine today and the variant of tomorrow.
Exactly. Yeah, totally. So yeah, I mean, that's something to track, and I think people realize, or I hope people realize, that administration and logistics are super important. And if you don't have the right competent people in government, you won't have the right logistics. So that's what I'm praying that people realize. I think they'll just blame it on something else, and they will still vote people who are a bit useless. But let's see.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I honestly agree with you quite strongly, because we can see the effects of poor management or distribution, or the economics of the not virus, but the vaccine. We can see how that plays a problem in the actual vaccination, right? Because, okay, we figured out the vaccines and it's been a year and they're obviously somewhat effective and they're usable. That's great. But, I mean, look at the map, right? People are lacking. People are definitely lacking.
And in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's crazy. You look at France and Germany, two great, amazing, big, strong economies. They're doing worse than Poland. How? How? That's how I'm very interested. That's quite surprising to me, because I didn't realize that. For sure, they're bigger countries by population.
Yeah, but per capita, so all of these numbers are per capita.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the first number per capita, and then, or per 100 people, and then the others are like in respective of the whole population. But I mean, yeah, the point is that, as you can see, management and how, I don't want to say, but basically we see that how different kind of vaccination plans that they're rolling out. In the US, there's a lot of vaccinating in general. Obviously, 360 million people there, so that's a huge country. The UK, then there's, what else is it? Chile, another, whatever. Just trying to pick out some good example. Seychelles, I mean, they've obviously got a tiny population, but they're doing great. Israel as well. Wow, 50% of over 50% of the population, and wow, they have over a third of the population now fully vaccinated.
And it's interesting because they had a big issue with the COVID and vaccines because of their very ultra-Orthodox population that was very hesitant. And one, disbelieved the virus, and two, was very hesitant of the vaccines. So they're having a big issues with outbreaks, and I think that's part of the reason why and then they're also very militarized. So it's a lot easier for them, close the economy, militarized, small country,
right?
To get a better.
Fair enough.
Yeah, but yeah, let's talk about that quarantine life and the effects of vaccination or not vaccination, and how we've dealt with the past year, basically.
Yeah, it's been a year. It's been a year. In the UK, we see somewhat of an end to it, in terms of having the hope that we'll be out and about, by the summer, which is great. But yeah, the past year has been quite the challenge. People have had to adapt, and it's one of those situations that if you don't adapt yourself, you're going to get left behind. That's it. I mean, this is everything from when I speak to professors about class attendance, or like how people are active in class in terms of like accessing online materials, and just kind of their involvement and all that kind of stuff. You see that people self-select themselves into being more how do I say it, like involved essentially in class, right, in whatever way you can, with the other half, or a lot of the people just tuning out. They'll study a week before the exam, as most people do, because they're at home. And now this whole semester, basically for me, is going to be self-study online. Some subjects are coming back to like a hybrid, some face-to-face, some not, some online teaching. For me, it's basically all online. And if you've got the discipline, and this is just a general rule for life, really, if you've got the discipline, you'll prosper and you'll be able to do whatever you want. Like when it comes to like life in general, there's a few healthy habits that I've picked up over the past year, ironically. There's also just in my personal life, like very, very personal. So a lot of good that came out, when it comes to like reading, running, working out, even like the gym is something that I miss. I recently bought like some resistance bands to train at home because I've been tired of just like running or not going to the gym essentially. But that's been life in the UK. We're now a third lockdown. We've basically been in lockdown most of the time, aside from the summer. Over the past year, I think that was the only time we weren't in full lockdown. So that's been life in the UK. Literally just quarantine life. Well, not quarantine, but lockdown.
Not quite as bad. Yeah, quarantine life is pretty terrible. I can't even go for a walk. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. And then they put a nice roadmap, so you guys hopefully will come out of that. Here in Malta, it's very much like the summer was in the UK. And I think that's because they're an island and they do rapid testing at the airports. Everybody who comes in, everybody who goes by boat. And that's pretty good. But yeah, look, I completely agree with you. It's really about adapting and finding different ways of coping with it. And yeah, because it's online, if you don't engage, if you don't apply yourself, if you don't have work ethic, then there's not much you do. You just sit around and do nothing.
Yeah.
Finding the right balance of talk to people, reach out to people, like us, we're just finding ways to socialize.
Yeah, that's tough. The socializing part is very tough. Like, look at us. We're drinking a beer over the, it's not even a Zoom call. It's like some streaming platform, But yeah, the point is, like, I was even speaking to my grandma today, and she was talking about the negative effect that this is going to have on school children. Like, there's a difference between us, university students, or in general, like all the students, we've been in the normal system of education. We know how to manage ourselves. I even told her that, even in my year group, there's a lot of people that tune out and just kind of rush their work before the exam. But the point is, like, if you look at younger people, I don't know, between probably ages, whoever's in school between 6 and 14, like this might be a problem, in terms of like life in general, how you work and socialize. I feel like even people at my brother's age, or especially us as well, like we've been in a normal system long enough to, after COVID, go back to it and like really appreciate it, really appreciate all that we're given and the people that we're able to meet, this, that, and the other. But also what's important to realize is that I feel like people are misguided by the idea that as soon as COVID goes away, it's going to be smooth sailing. Like life's just going to be good. Like that's it. Like you don't realize that you might need this kind of discipline and this adaptability forever. Like sure, there might not be another pandemic in the next few decades. Maybe there will. I mean, who knows really? But the point is that a lot of these skills that we're learning now, or a lot of the hardships that we're facing, people know when it comes to how they're feeling, their mental health, loneliness. It's a real problem right now. The point is that, it's not like everything will go away as soon as COVID ceases to exist.
What does that mean if COVID goes away? Do they eradicate it? But you can't really eradicate like polio because it's not as severe and it's much more transmissible than polio is. So I completely agree. And I mean, as you said, like we were here before and we had our phones and we were texting and talking to people. So
yeah,
COVID came and we just kept texting people. yeah, well, we tried to.
Yeah. I mean, it hasn't been easy for sure. Like for anyone, everyone's got their own challenges. Like parents at home, especially, they're having to educate their kids, especially when they're younger, care for them, still work, care for the home, care for the families. Students like us, we have to adapt, find jobs, find master's programs, all that kind of stuff. Everyone's got their own challenges, And I think the biggest challenge that we have is the problem of like loneliness. But at the same time, then when COVID leaves, we still have to then make the effort to make friendships. I feel like that might be a bit of a challenge, like rebuilding friendships and connections after this, just like how do you go and socialize? Like, you go to a bar, like, yeah, sure, you can go and hang out with like a close friends. Like that won't be a problem, If we were going to go to a bar now, we'd have a good night. But like, meeting new people and striking new connections, like, oh, what have you been up to? I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just a puzzle problem. I don't know how to chat anyone up, but
Yeah, all the conversation will be like, oh, how was COVID? What did you do?
That's the last thing I want to hear when we get out. That is the last thing. I swear to God. Okay, this summer, especially in the UK, will be insane because of how wild people will go. Like, I imagine we're going to have the 4th and 5th lockdown just because of what happens on June 21st when everything, all the restrictions fall down. But, whatever. We'll see what happens. But it'll be kind of weird, It'll be like it'll feel like we're becoming more free, but at the same time, we're only going back to what used to be normal for decade, since 1918 Spanish flu.
I agree, and I think there'll also be like cultural changes because people will be very wary. They'll see big groups and be like, "Oh, that's not normal. Or, that's weird."
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people still have masks on transport, like public transport, which is quite wise, to be honest. I mean, especially over the next few coming months, like maybe a year or two down the line, especially when you have the vaccines, 2 doses yourself, that's different. But even though things are going to start opening up now, I feel like people are still going to be wearing their masks, which is, wise, whatever. I feel like a lot of people are going to make the conscious decision not to only care for the hygiene more and be more just wary of their surroundings and, stay cleaner and live a healthier lifestyle in general. I feel like some of these habits will stick, like, the masks on public transport. Yeah, oh, for sure. 100%. Something like that. Which is interesting because maybe we should have done that in the past as well, because it's not like there's still other illnesses and like the cold and whatever flying about. But yeah, it's here to stay probably. A lot of the habits.
I agree. Well, let's see how it goes. We can look back on this and be like, well, were our predictions right?
Well, I think that'd be interesting to see. Honestly, I mean, I imagine we'll be looking back at this. I mean, I don't know, a year down the line, a few years down the line. Maybe we'll be laughing right now. I don't know, for whatever reason. But the point being is that
no clue.
No clue, right? I mean, I can't imagine what it's going to be like a few months down the line. Like, what is going to happen when the restrictions fall down? Like, how is life going to be like? I mean,
it's probably going to get delayed, but beyond that,
oh, yeah, for sure. But still, like, okay, even if it's going to be delayed, July, end of July, August, I don't know. September. But okay, I hope so.
September.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Especially when it comes to like the student like clubbing and those kind of things, like that's going to take the longest. But even just going to the gym, going out to hang out with a friend, coffee shop, like just those things. Like we don't need to do anything. We just need to go and I just want to go and hang out. That kind of stuff. That should return quite soon, relatively a few months down the line. But I do know that since I'm going to be coming back here for a master's next year, I have the hope that everything is going to be open, and it's going to be like freshers again. First year. I feel like that's what it's going to be like for every year group, for even postgrads, whatever. Like just PhDs.
Well, yeah, I agree. It will feel like freshers for everybody around the world. But yeah, I think with the variants, they'll come back and lock things back. I feel the worst for old people because we're young. We're like, oh yeah, it messed up our 20s or whatever. But first 1 or 2 years, and we have like 80 years more to live. People who are like 80, 90, they literally probably have a couple of years to live. And suddenly they've been inside really scared to not get infected because for them it's terrible. And they're like, shit, I couldn't see my grandkids. I couldn't do anything. I was stuck here. I was scared. Couldn't go outside. That's bad.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Everyone suffers in their own way. And yeah, you can argue to what extent some people suffer more than others in terms of like genuine loneliness, because but I mean, yeah, that's it, and that's it's a problem. And I think that's why it's important to, when we come back to this, to really appreciate more the connections that we have and the things that we have around us. Just be more grateful. Like even today or tomorrow, give your grandparents a call or something like that. I don't know. People should do that.
You should get in touch, with family, 100%. But yeah, cool. I think it's been really good. I can see already unboozing with the water. I think that's a great idea.
Yeah, it was just funny. I've been yapping about for 35 minutes, man. That's I don't even know if that's a verb. We got to set like a word in Polish for like having a big mouth. But I'm just thirsty. Been talking a lot.
Yapping. Yeah. Well, I think it's been super cool. I think it definitely changed things up with a beer.
Yeah.
More yapping.
More yapping. Yeah, it's been chill. Next week, I'm bringing my ID to Tesco's, or even better, I'm not shopping at Tesco's anymore, man. Fuck these guys.
Boycott Tesco's.
Boycott Tesco's and their beers and stuff and ales. Whatever. They left me stuck with this Corona, like my Coronas, which have been in the fridge since, like, I don't know, 2015. It's been ages.
That's crazy. Lol. Yeah, cool. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been really good. We'll join you next week to talk about lots of cool stuff. Let's see where GameStop goes. Let's see where code goes, restrictions, which we'll find out soon, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Adios.
Right.